Well, good morning, evening, or afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name's Aaron. I'm the Product and Education Specialist for OMSYSTEM here in Australia and New Zealand. And I'm very, very excited to be here to do our Southern Hemisphere live stream on our brand new 50 to 200 mil. This is obviously, well, for those of you who've been paying attention, it's been on a lens roadmap for us for quite a while now. So for us to be able to launch it and start talking about it is incredibly exciting. And I hope you guys are just as excited as we are to see what's going on with it. So tonight, look, I've got lots of images that I've taken with it, some from some of our ambassadors as well. Because really what we want to talk about is not just what it's all about, but also what it's capable of. I mean, let's face it, that's the most important thing when you release a new lens is what can it actually do and what can it do for you. So let's get into it, everybody, because like I said, I'm super excited and I hope everybody else here is as well. So this beautiful new lens, as I said, has been in the pipeline for quite a while, and it really does live up to and possibly even exceed everybody's expectations. I know that I was incredibly impressed with it when I first got my sample a couple of weeks ago. Haven't had obviously only a couple of weeks. You can only do so much with it, but I did have an opportunity to spend some days out shooting, and again I'll share some images with you a little bit later on. But the incredible thing about this lens is just how versatile it is. It's small, it's light. We'll talk through some of the techie stuff as we go along, but it really is an incredible lens for the amount of different things that it can do. But it's not just a jack of all trades, it's a specialist at anything that you want to throw at this lens. And as I said, I'll show you as we go along what that looks like. But really, one of the cool things about this is that we're really redefining what this type of lens can do, not just for you, but for us as well. Because for something to be able to, or for a lens like this to be able to cover multiple genres the way that it does, it's just so portable, so fast, and obviously super portable as well. But that versatility really does sort of, or everything else sort of pales in example to what this is actually capable of. So to be able to do all of this and obviously still use the teleconverters, which we talked about a little bit, well, we'll talk about in a little second. The reach that you get with this is incredible. And again, it's all with that one lens, just by putting those teleconverters on there if you need to as well. So 4 key points that we want to cover off tonight, guys. So starting off with what makes it unique, and let's face it, we want to talk about what makes it unique. Next, how compact, steady, and obviously reliable it's going to be. So the image stabilization system that we use with SYNC-IS is obviously included in this, and again, it actually takes it to another level. But also that reliability is definitely something that is a cornerstone that we've always embraced as a brand. And obviously this new lens is no exception to that. Also fast and versatile. So again, super fast. It enables you to do things because of the aperture range that it has, because to have something like this at f2.8 for the range that it covers is completely unique. There's nothing else out there that can actually do what this lens can do the way that it does it. So some of you will be familiar with our the big white lens, which I've heard everybody refer it to over the last couple of days. There'll be 150 to 400 mil. It is very much in that vein. It is super premium. It is super polished and finished and premium. But again, it's all about the results. So hi, Stuart. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Surrey. Welcome. Hopefully your weather's a little bit better over your way, Stuart, because I can hear the rain absolutely belting down outside. It's unfortunately a very typical spring day for us here in Melbourne. It was incredibly cold and it rained about 20 times and it's just started again. So hopefully it's a little bit better where you guys are. So, and then finally, image quality. Let's face it, this is the most important thing, and this is the thing that everybody wants to see. So, g'day, Tony. Lovely to see you. Well, we hear from you again. Lovely. But yeah, image quality. That's our main focus for this evening. So, I'll talk a little bit about the lens itself and what it's capable of. But again, showing you what it's capable of is the most important thing that we're going to be doing tonight here. So, and hello, Jeff. Welcome. Okay, so again, the world's only equivalent 100 to 400 mil f2.8. So those of you who are sort of keen bird photographers or wildlife photographers would definitely be very familiar with that focal length of 100 to 400 mil. And I guess the challenge with that is that it gives us the reach that we need, but not necessarily the versatility or the speed of aperture. that we would like to see, and what you generally would see in either really large fixed tele lenses, so 400 2.8s, 400 f4s, even 600s, and that sort of thing as well. So it's actually incredible for us to be able to package everything that we've got in here. And I'm actually going to show you some comparisons here as well. So I watched Michaela and the American teams, or North American teams, session this morning, and Michaela did a little comparison between the 40 to 150, but I've actually got a couple of different lenses that I want to show you here in real time, just so you can actually see just how it sort of figures against everything else. Because it's all great to see, you know, the dimensions written down in print and all that sort of thing, but until you actually see it and feel it for yourself, you're really not going to be able to get a true read on what this is like. So that's what I guess the exciting next part for us all is, to get this out there and get it in as many people's hands as we can. So, some more things from here as well. So, hello from Perth, hello from Edinburgh, hello from Rosebud, greetings from Spain, Claire and Peter in Melbourne, hello, hello, beautiful, wonderful. And Jenny as well. G'day. Welcome. Thank you, guys. Look, it's always great to see lots of people joining these, because obviously they're at very short notice. For those of you who aren't aware, the official announcement for the lens was only at 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon Australian time. So there's what has been really positive, if you haven't already seen some of these pop up in either your social media feeds or in your YouTube feeds and that sort of thing, is there's been some brilliant reviews talking about all the brilliant things that this lens can do. And it's really exciting to see everybody singing its praises already. So, but look, reviews are one thing. You and your personal experience with it and seeing what you can actually achieve with it is obviously another thing altogether. So, let's rush through this bit about, you know, the techie stuff, and then we'll get into all the exciting bits. But one thing I do want to point out with this, again, for the range coverage that it does, especially at f2.8, because that is completely unique. There's nothing else in the world that is in this range right now. But it's also incredibly light. And I know that from personal experience, when I've handed over the 150 to 400 mils to people, they sort of brace themselves. They, you know, expect it to be so much bigger and heavier than what it actually is. And this is exactly the same. You really think that this is going to be a lot heavier than what it is. So at 1,075 grams, or just over a kilo, it really is super, super light. So it's about 475 grams lighter than what our fixed f4 300 mil is. So it's, again, an incredible lens for the range that it covers. But again, that's only part of the story. So let's get into a little bit further, because we need to talk about usability and when we're actually out in the field and actually using this with a camera. So if you were partnering this with an OM1 Mark II, that's only 599 grams on its own. But when you partner it with that lens, you're looking at just over 1.6 kilos. So to have something with this level of versatility that is still so super portable, and not just while you're shooting with it. And this is something that I really loved about this when I first started taking this around, because obviously it's all a little bit the secret squirrel. You can't sort of let people know what you're using, and you know, it's all got to be covered up and that sort of thing. And most of the time I was luckily out on my own. But I can travel with my normal low pro backpack and throw this in there, and it just fits in with everything else, because again, it's not that much different in size to some of the other tellies that we've already got within our range, which is really cool. But while you're actually using it, that lightness is obviously something that's going to give you some longevity across the entire day while you're shooting, or multiple days, depending on what you're going to be doing. Whether it be either out for a day shooting birds or on a safari or something like that, then that's going to be incredible. So, beautiful. So, a quick note here from Gregory. So, after having the 40 to 150 as a daily companion, looking forward to experiencing the 50 to 200. Gregory, look, I'll be honest with you. That was, I think, my biggest sort of thought process around this when we first saw, you know, the official specs of it is, I wonder how this is actually going to compare to the 40 to 150, because that's, apart from the 12 to 100, again, purely for its versatility, the 40 to 150 2.8 is still one of my favorite lenses. It's still small, it's still light, it's super fast, it's super sharp. So to be able to sort of live up to that expectation and then exceed it again was pretty powerful message from our R&D guys, and obviously the way they've been able to pull this together for us, which is amazing. So a couple of other hellos, guys. Good evening. For Maryland Long. So I still have the 4/3 40 to 150. That was a brilliant lens, by the way, Maryland. I extensively used that back in the day when we had E-system lenses. For those of you who haven't seen that before, it's of the 50 to 200 in our E-system or in our DSLR range. Was one of our SWD lenses, so the supersonic wave drive lenses. So they were really, really fast to focus, especially for the time, but still weather sealed. So like our semi-pro and pro ranges were at the time. But I guess the advantage over the E-system version to the new one is that the old one was F2.8 to 3.5, whereas this is 2.8 the whole way through, obviously, unless you're using the teleconverters with it. But that was an absolutely fantastic lens, and obviously it had a lot to, well, this range that had a lot to live up to, and that's exactly what we've delivered with this one. So again, it's all about being free from weight. So it's going to be 2 times lighter than pretty much anything in a fixed lens that you're going to see in either 400 or 800 equivalent, or 3 times lighter compared to the other 100 to 400 2.8 equivalent with multiple systems across there as well. And obviously, as I said, this is the only current 100 to 400 2.8 that's out there. So let's talk about range, because I've got a couple of examples here of the range and the sort of reach that the lens is going to give you on its own. And that was actually something I was really looking forward to trying. And I'm based in Melbourne, Victoria now. I've been down here for 3 years, and our office is up in Sydney. I quite often run workshops out at a place called Werribee, where they have a treatment area which is home to, I've heard and read from multiple people, houses the largest range of bird life in the Southern Hemisphere. And after going there the first couple of times, I knew exactly what they were talking about. And luckily enough, I've been blessed with some really good images and some really good bird life each time that we've been down there. So I've done a couple of trips down there with this lens. Spent a morning and an afternoon there. Once shooting with the lens on its own and with the 2 times teleconverter, and then another whole afternoon spending time with it on the 1.4. So it really is incredible, no matter which way you're using it. I guess the advantage of being able to throw that teleconverter on there is, again, just extending that reach. But as some of you may or may not know, when you put a teleconverter onto your lens to, extend or enhance your reach that the lens is going to give you, one of the things that happens is that you lose light. You lose a stop of light with the MC14 or the 1.4 times teleconverter, but you lose 2 stops of light when you're using the 2 times teleconverter. Now, that can still be great if you've got lots of ambient light to play with, hence why we have a range of lenses that we can use our teleconverters on. But because we've got such a bright, fast starting point with this lens, it means that we can extend our reach and still keep our maximum aperture that is still very usable and still captures lots of light for us. So you're almost getting all of the positives without some of the, the additional challenges that you might get with some different slower lenses if you are using teleconverters. And that's not just an OM system thing; that's a photography thing. That's exactly how it works for every sort of teleconverter that's out there. So, quick little thing on just how small it is by comparison. So here you've got a couple of examples of an 800mm or a 400mm. So again, you can see just how much smaller and lighter that is. And I'm going to cut to my camera in a second just so you can finally see what they actually look like by comparison to some of these other lenses. But again, so small and so light, so compact, but again, an absolute powerhouse. So I'm just going to stop this for a second, and I'm going to cut to my camera here just so everybody can see me properly. So here it is in the flesh. So again, absolutely beautiful. It's not, again, anywhere near as big or as heavy as what you might think it is. There it is side by side with the 40 to 150, if it's going to play nice for me because I've got my background on. There we go. So you can see that it's only a little bit longer, and it's only slightly wider as well. So it's a 77mm front element filter. And there it is by comparison with the 40 or the 150 to 400mm. So if I hold that up in the right plane of focus, that might do me a favor. Or do it for me. There we go. Or nearly there or thereabouts. I'll cut my background off a little bit later just so everybody can see it properly. But the other one that I know lots of people would be interested in seeing is how it compares to the 300mm as well. So I'll actually take off my background a little bit later so everybody can sort of see that a little bit better, because otherwise that background that I've got on there is just killing it. But again, the brilliant thing is that it's not that much bigger and heavier than well, it's actually lighter than the 300mm f4, as I said, and it's only slightly longer than the 100 to 400mm as well. So yeah. So remind me to actually put that back, or take my filter off the back of my camera a little bit later, so everybody can have a proper look at it. I tested that before, and it didn't actually do that to me. So maybe it's because I changed lighting. I'm not sure, but again, it's something that everybody's going to want to know about, because that is the way that you are going to compare it for yourselves when you're actually either got it in hand, or the way that it's actually going to, change the way that you photograph, or also change the way you travel. And I reference this again, that when I was able to just pop this into the same bag that I would take pretty much everywhere in the world, that low pro backpack has had a pretty hard life, but it houses everything that I need: multiple bodies, multiple smaller lenses, but it still has space for that 50 to 200mm on its own, and still with a little bit of space to spare on that side as well, which is pretty cool. So a couple of notes here as well. So yeah, lots of people saying they've got the 50 to 200 E system, which is very cool. Finally got my hands on OM3 today. But no new lens in store, Brisbane, just yet. Yeah, so that is actually a big question that everybody's been asking as well, is when can we actually see one, or how quickly can we get our hands on one? So that does vary a little bit from one country to another. So I know we've got lots of people here from all over the world. Best thing to do is to contact your local photo specialty store, and see when they are going to be receiving stock of it. So in Australia, we'll start shipping in the next couple of weeks. But I'm pretty sure that is going to vary from one sort of region and country to the other as well. So make sure you communicate with your local folks, and they'll be able to give you all the detail that you need. Okay, so let's move on to the compact, steady, and reliable stanza here, guys. So again, handheld images in any weather. So we'll talk about the weather sealing in a second, but let's talk about how it stabilizes. So again, for those of you who are familiar with our system and the way that we stabilize, many years ago, we first developed what we call SYNC-IS. Now, the way that works is that there's a floating stabilizer element that's inside the lens that actually talks in real time to the stabilizer inside the body. So the reason why we call it sync is that they're actually working in perfect synergy. They're working together 100% of the time. So this is, again, no different, and you're able to achieve up to 7 stops of IS at the extended tele length, at the 200mm range as well. So that in itself is incredible, because it just means that not only are you going to get great results, but you're also going to see the really good results as well. So that's what we mean by a stable EVF. You're actually going to see that stability as you're actually photographing. And look, I've been very lucky to be privy to, photograph from time to time with different systems over the years, and it really is a challenge to go away from what obviously from a usability point of view, but from going to how steady and stable our system is compared to some of the other things that are out there that still do actually a really good job. And some of them are quite stable, but they don't sort of do a great job of displaying that stability to you. So while you're actually shooting, can be a little bit tough. But once you come back to what we can do, and again, this lens takes it to another level, it really, really is incredible. So that's, again, not just the result, but also the usability side of it as well, which is incredibly important. Because for those of you who might not have heard this before, the lens, I was going to say reconciliation, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Anyway, the reciprocal rule is the word that I'm looking for. Basically is a little bit of a photography rule where you should match your shutter speed or higher to the focal length that you're shooting with in order to keep a steady image, so you're not going to get any sort of blur or handshake from the camera. So with a non-stabilized lens at equivalent 400mm, you're not going to be really able to shoot below a 400th of a second. Handheld, that is. Obviously, if we're shooting on a mono or a tripod, that's a little bit different story. But because of the 7 stops that we're getting, you can shoot all the way down to a third of a second. And that's SEPA rated as well. So that's not internal testing. That's the global SEPA standard testing that they've done for this as well, which is awesome. So, well, quick note here from Ball of Fire 99. Have you tried it with sports or motorsport photography? Not as of yet, but that's only because, as I said, we've got to, I've only had this for a couple of weeks, so you've got to be a little bit secret squirrel with it and not sort of get it out in broad public, so nobody sees it when they shouldn't. So I'm actually looking forward to that as well, because I had the pleasure of shooting the Desert Fink race with the official Fink team in the last couple of years, which is a desert race of motorbikes and trophy trucks and that sort of thing that race from Alice Springs out to the Fink River and back again over a weekend. So dusty, hot, super fast, super challenging sort of thing to do. And look, I've shot it the last couple of years with the 150 to 400 mil because you actually have to keep a safe distance. For all of the medium stuff, and especially with the teleconverters on this, I think this actually might overtake that because it's going to give me still the reach that I need. It still has the focusing speed, which is also a really important point that I'm going to cover a little bit later. But no, I'm incredibly keen to actually get out and shoot some motorsport with this because I think it's going to be an absolute beast when it comes to that sort of photography as well. And so a quick thing, and I wanted to show you this because it gives you a visual representation of what we're actually talking about with how this SYNC-IS works. So as you can see on the screen here, you've got the floating element inside the lens that will operate in pitch and yaw, so pitch and yaw, whereas the stabilizer inside the body can move in 5 axes, so still in pitch and yaw as well, but a vertical, a horizontal, and the body roll axis as well. So by having all of these things working together is incredibly important because the longer the focal length that you're using, that sort of pivot point actually gets further away from the camera. So to be able to stabilize in this way and give you this handheld performance, it just means that you just got, again, greater flexibility, let alone how small and light it is at the same time. So that's pretty cool. Now, any weather means any weather. So those of you who haven't seen that reference before of IP53 or ingress protection, which is what that IP rating means, basically it means that those two numbers are two different things. So the first number is for dust and the second one is for liquid. So and for those of you who, again, have been part of our Olympus or OMSYSTEM family for a long time, we'll see example videos of how we internally test these things. But the way we internally test is one thing. This is also officially rated at that level as well. So that's not a statement from us as a company or a brand. That's actually officially certified at that IP53 rating as well, which is great because we've got the OM1 Mark II and OM3, as well as the OM5 Mark II, all rated to IP53 for the body. So it's actually a really important point that if you've got this beautifully weather sealed lens, obviously you want the body to be able to be capable of it as well. But because we are such an outdoor focus and want to be that outdoor specialist brand, that's exactly why we certify all of our cameras and the majority of our pro lenses, and obviously the higher end pro lenses like the 50 to 200 to that level as well. So that's pretty cool. -10 freeze resistance as well. And again, that also matches the camera body. We've also got multi-coated front lens as well. So for fluorine coating. The reason for that is a couple of things. So the first thing is actually for reducing ghosting for when you're shooting into direct sunlight. But the fluorine coating is actually for dust and water reduction as well. So it actually repels that water and dust because we all know that anything that's stuck onto the front element of our lens is going to affect every single photograph that we take. So it not only expels it on its own, but it just makes it a lot easier to clean as well. But good little tip that if you are cleaning any lens, so not just one of these, always start with a blower. So always blow off anything that's on there because you don't want something abrasive on there when you start wiping it. So always blow off first and then give it a wipe as long as you can't see any sort of dust or debris on the front element of the lens, that is. And again, this is what we can see internally, the way that this lens is actually structured and the way that it's sealed. So nothing is left to chance when you have a lens that's rated to this level. And again, you can see in the example shot, that's exactly what they do. Okay, fast and versatile, guys. So let's talk about speed. So as I mentioned before, speed is obviously a big part of this, not just from the birds and wildlife, but from a motorsport perspective, depending on the style that you shoot. It will support that 50 frames continuous focus, which the OM1 Mark II, and the OM3 are actually capable of. Now, quick little side note for this as well, guys, that for the OM1, there was a firmware upgrade that enabled the OM1 to use the maximum of 50 frames continuous focus. So with the 50 to 200 mil. So 1.8 was released yesterday afternoon at the same time as the lens. So if you happen to have an OM1 Mark I body and you haven't updated your firmware, please do so, especially if you plan on getting this lens, because we want you to be able to squeeze every last drop out of it. So you'll be able to do that, which is good. F2.8, and there's a couple of things that I want to point out with this 2.8. So Obviously, it's brilliant from a light capturing point of view. So it just means that we've got those extra 2 stops of light comparatively to what you would have for other tele range zooms at that sort of, well, in this sort of vein. But also the one thing that I really noticed about this, and you'll see this in some of the example shots that I've got, is that yes, it means you can achieve a faster shutter speed because you've got those extra stops of light to play with. But the bokeh out of this lens is absolutely gorgeous. And at 2.8, because remember, your equivalent focal length with the lens on its own is 400 mil. So 2.8 at 400 mil, your depth of field is actually really, really shallow. So it's giving you, yes, that beautiful defocused area, but it's also really creating that beautiful subject separation as well. So, and again, I've got some cool example shots of that when we get to it as well, which is nice. But from a versatility point of view, and you may have seen one of the images right at the beginning was talking about macro photography, because it has a 0.5 magnification on its own, but it will actually go down to 1:1 when you're using the MC20 teleconverter. It will support focus stacking, like the majority of our pro lenses as well. And where a typical lens within that sort of focal length range would be limited to sort of 0.35 to 0.38 sort of magnification, that 0.5 itself on its own is incredible. And a big part of this is its close focusing capability. So there is a little focus switch, which I'll show you a little bit later. So it helps you set your focus distance. But that 0.78 minimum focus distance, which is measured from the sensor, is actually available through the entire zoom range. So you may have noticed that it is an internal zoom lens, so there's nothing extending outside of the camera. There's other advantages for that, but one of them, I suppose, for this means that we can also have that minimum focus distance throughout that entire range, because there's no extension or change to the actual lens barrel distance when you're zooming in as well. So, but again, to be able to get down to 1:1 with that MC20 2x teleconverter just adds another string to its bow, and it's already doing some pretty incredible things on its own. But I did want to show everybody focus stacking, because I think this is something that is starting to sort of come to the fore a little bit. Some people will know about this, some people won't. But I guess the challenge, and especially when we're shooting macro, when we start to get up really, really close, is that our depth of field gets really, really, really shallow, really, really small. So, and if you haven't heard that expression, depth of field, before, it's basically how much in the shot is going to be in focus. So again, the closer we get, the smaller that area actually gets. So as the example shot shows us here, even though that was shot at f8, you can already see that that's starting to drop off fairly quickly. And those second row of flowers is already quite out of focus, even though the distance isn't actually that huge. So the advantage of focus stacking means that we can take a range of shots. Now that'll depend on the camera body that you have, but it will take multiple shots, all at slightly different focal planes, and then sticks them all together for you inside the camera. So it just means that you still get the depth of field that you need, and the camera's doing all the heavy lifting for you. So the brilliant thing is you actually get the best of both worlds. You can either use it for a single shot, or you can actually drop your aperture a little bit more wider, or open it up a little bit wider. So you actually capture a little bit more light, which is obviously great for handheld shooting, because it means that we can pump our shutter speed up a little bit and still achieve the depth of field that we need, which is what you can see in this example shot there on the right. So that's very, very nice as well. Now, this is the lens in a nutshell. So this is what you actually can control on the lens itself. So at the top there, you can see you've got your focus limiter switch, or your focus distance control switch. So you've got 0.78 to 3 meters, then you've got the full range, so 0.78 to infinity, and then you've got 3 meters to infinity. Now, the reason why this is important on a lens like this is that you actually get to tell the lens the range that you want it to focus within. Now, there's definitely ways to do this inside the camera, and it's actually something that when we talk about our in our workshops, we actually talk about being able to set up function buttons for focus limiter inside the camera. But to be able to do this on the lens is obviously much quicker and much easier. So the reason why it's there is to not only control the distance that we're focusing in, but also to speed our focusing up. So by telling the camera, the lens, I should say, the range that you want it to focus within, means that it's ignoring what we don't want and only focusing within the range that we do. And as I said, you can take that to another level by setting 3 different levels of focus limiter inside the camera, which you can use in combination with this as well. So from Jeff having to explain depth of field for folk contemplating purchasing this lens. So sorry, Jeff. I'll admit, everybody, and apologies. I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that. I actually did a macro workshop this morning, so my head's a little bit in sort of explain from top to bottom mode. So apologies for that, Jeff. I'm definitely not trying to be condescending or anything like that. Please don't take it like that. But again, it is obviously an important thing and a key point that we want to focus on for the lens at the same time. But then, of course, we've got the other switches here between autofocus and manual. If you want to quickly switch between there, IS on and off. And some people might wonder why you actually have this on there. We still recommend that if you are using the lens on a tripod, to switch the IS unit off. This is probably even more important when you're shooting in video, and you'll actually see this result yourself. You don't need to have that stabilizer on there when you're shooting video on a tripod. A monopod, I would still say leave it on there, because again, the tilt and movement that you're going to have from a monopod's going to still, well, not necessarily required, but it'll be good to have that extra assistance on there as well. So, but yes, you can quickly switch it on and off from there. A quick note on that IS switch as well is that because of the way that the Sync IS system works in between the lens and the body, if you turn the IS or the image stabilizer switch off on the lens, it'll actually disable the stabilization on everything, so on the body as well as the lens, which is great because it means that you don't have to do it in two different places. You can just flick the switch on the side of the lens and you know that everything's off and ready to go. Cool. All right, now let's talk image quality, guys. This is the fun stuff. So a little bit about the lens itself. So inner zoom, as I said, so internal zoom, it has some huge benefits, but it's also great for balance and the actual physical design of the lens. We've got 21 elements in 13 groups, and obviously excellent resolution across the entire zoom range. Now, there was a video that came out from a very big reviewer yesterday doing working off their own test charts. And they were blown away about the center to edge sharpness, even at wide open, and the entire way through the zoom range. So again, don't take our word for it. There's lots of evidence to prove all of that stuff as we go along as well. And again, that zero coating or that zero version 2 coating helps minimize flaring as well, which is amazing. So that's what the lens layout looks like. And as you can see, again, this is all very clever and deliberate design to keep the majority of your elements sort of back towards the bayonet area of the lens. So when you pick this up, on its own, it feels very light, but it also means that it doesn't feel like it's completely weighing you down or pulling you forwards while you've actually got it attached to the camera, which is important because we're not going to carry the lens around on its own, are we? We're always going to be having it attached to our lens. So again, I just wanted to show you that just so you can sort of see what that actually looks like. So, so from Paul, given large lenses put a strain on the camera, unlike the 150, doesn't some recommendation for carrying a camera with this lens? Pete, I'll be honest with you, I don't have an official recommendation for something that we've had some information delivered from head office or anything like that. But one thing that I found that worked really well, and I'll hold this up a little bit later, but you might be able to see this on here. I've got a little Peak Design pin for my two end straps attached to the bottom of it. I just found that really comfortable to port it around like that. So basically, big sling over my shoulder, sort of keep it behind my bottom hip, and then I can grab the camera grip and pull the camera up and get it ready to shoot whenever I was ready. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily an official recommendation, but that's just what I did with it, and it seemed to work really, really well. But the way that you carry and port your cameras obviously is a very personal thing for people as well. So, but you're right, because it doesn't have the loops on it, and for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, with the 150 to 400 mil, it actually has a couple of loops on here. So you can actually attach your strap directly to the lens. That's just the way that I did it on mine, and as I said, it worked really, really well. But again, because it's not super heavy, I mean, it's obviously even lighter than the 300 mil F4. That worked really, really well for me. But again, being able to strap it from direct to camera, again, I think you could still be able to do it, but I think more from a comfort point of view, it actually makes more sense to be able to attach it directly to the camera via the tripod mount anyway. So anyway, that's just what I did. So let's get into some example shots, guys. So I've got a couple from some of our ambassadors around the world, and I've got some that I've done as well. So we'll start off with this first one. So this is absolutely gorgeous. Again, the color and detail out of this is brilliant. So this is shot by one of our North American ambassadors named M.ZUIKO. As you can see, beautiful sharpness, but look at that defocused area, guys. It is absolutely beautiful. Really soft, really, really creamy. Again, beautiful subject separation. And again, that's where that 2.8 aperture is really going to come into its own when you're shooting stuff like this. something a little bit closer to home. So lots of folks in Australia will recognise the Crimson Rosella, but for some of you who haven't seen or wouldn't have seen these from overseas. In the wild, they're actually a lot bigger than what the ones that are in captivity are, and as they should be and as they would be. But again, the colouring and the detail on these is absolutely fantastic. So I've got some example shots across all 4 of our key categories for the lens, but I think I was having so much of a good time photographing birds. You're going to see more bird images than everything else, which I hope is okay. But also bird images are also a great way to be able to show off the sharpness and detail of a lens as well. So that's why we're doing it at the same time. So so that one was shot with MC20. This one was also shot with the MC20. This is sort of starting to head into the afternoon. So we had some really good light sort of shining right across here. These were captured in Yea, in country Victoria. I say country Victoria. It's only a couple of hours outside of Melbourne, but it's starting to get to the country. This guy here, again, captured with the MC20 as well. So again, beautiful color and beautiful detail out of this as well, which is really, really nice. Quick note here from Maryland. So yeah, I use the Peak Design system on my 150 to 600 mil. Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go. Now this guy, I was lucky to spend a morning with this young gentleman. I believe he is a kestrel. I'm no ornithologist, so please, I'm happy to be corrected on this. But these eyes were just piercing, and anytime I started to get semi-close, this was basically the look that he was giving me each time. But again, beautiful detail. Again, look at the drop-off in the background of this, and that was shot with the MC20 as well. So even though that was at 5.6, you can see just how beautiful that depth of field is being managed by the lens as well. These are some eagles at the same place. So this is a shouldered black kite. Beautiful. Thank you very much for clearing that up for me. These are some eagles, also potentially some kites at the same place. So this is out at Werribee as well. And that was with the MC14. So I'm sort of jumping in between each of these because I wanted to give everybody some examples of each of the different sort of ranges that you're going to see, and obviously the clarity and detail that you're going to be able to capture with lens on its own with the MC14 and also the MC20. There's my little friend again. So I thought I'd lost him. He sort of was doing a little bit of hovering, which I'm going to show you in a second. But actually, no, that was on a different day. But on this particular day, I was sort of following around, not deliberately. It was sort of must have just been the direction that he was going in. But yeah, I took this beautiful shot of him here where he let me get a little bit closer because this is lens on its own, and obviously it's not zoomed all the way in because, again, I wanted to show a little bit of context for that body of water that he was sitting in as well. But there he is again. That's with the MC20. So that was the first day that I went out and shot with this down at Werribee. Again, super fast, super detailed, and no drop off on focusing with using the MC20 as well. This is also at Werribee. So this is actually a pair. These guys watched me fairly intently for quite a while because obviously the closer, well, they didn't care how close I got because they were perched quite high. But these guys are just so regal and so beautiful. But again, you can see the beautiful detail that we can capture here as well, because the range that this gives you, and again, that extra feel that it gives you with the MC14 is a lot of the time enough. Whereas the MC20, which obviously we've got some example shots of that as well, is still really great. But these are all with the one MC14. This was his partner. Isn't she absolutely beautiful? And again, she could not have cared less that I was anywhere near her because these two basically ruled the roost within that space. Anytime anything that they didn't like came within that space, other birds that is, they were pretty quick to send them on their way. So, but again, absolutely gorgeous. Some faster guys. So there was this beautiful little wire fence where there was a whole stack of them all sitting there. But each time that one would sort of go, you'd have like a little group fly off and then a little group sort of come back in and they'd all sort of sit and talk together. But again, from a high speed point of view, that's a pretty cool capture there. Canine Kestrel. Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much. And then same thing, but just a little bit later. Again, we've got a couple of those guys there, but again, the guy that I was actually focused on was the one with his wings straight up in the air at the sort of the top center of the frame. Again, even shooting with the teleconverters, it's just super sharp, which is really nice. Now, also, we've got, so this is captured by one of our overseas ambassadors as well. And this is also with a CPL filter, a CPL, I should say, not a CPL filter, a CPL. And the reason why that's important, and I'll hold this up so everybody can see it, but I'll talk about this a little bit later, is that on the lens hood that comes with the 50 to 200 mil, you've got this little opening that you can open and close. So you can actually access those circular polarizers and make those adjustments without having to take the whole hood off, or potentially put your fingerprints on the filter while you're making a change to it as well. So that's a design that we actually had back with our E-System lenses, and to my knowledge, that's the first Micro Four Thirds lens that we've actually incorporated that into. So, but again, with the lens that's so versatile, and as you can see, the beautiful things you can do with it, that's also something else that we needed to be considerate of as well. Now, here I've got some we move into our landscape examples. So I was lucky to spend an afternoon down at a fairly iconic space just on the edge of Melbourne called Prince's Pier. And this time, so all those other shots, for context, by the way, guys, were all shot with the OM1 Mark II. These are all shot with the OM3. Because again, I wanted to do something a little bit different, with color and contrast and features and that sort of thing as well. So again, really nice subtle use of color with this, which came across really nicely. Here we're starting to sort of lose some light, but again, we've got that beautiful sort of golden hour color coming into here as well. But for the keen-eyed people that will have noticed that this, I also use the graduated live neutral density filter here as well. So just took the background down into the horizon using in-camera controls, and that's what I was able to achieve with that as well, which is really nice. I could not believe this is a freezing, and when I say freezing, I mean a freezing cold afternoon. Right as the sun is about to go down, as you can see, and there was a couple of guys that were fishing off the pier, and I was sort of off to the left, sort of facing where all the old actual pier pieces are, and he was there just threading his knots and setting his hooks. And I turned and sort of looked straight at him like this and just went, "Oh, that looks really nice." And I was blown away about how much sort of detail was captured in this in the darkened parts of it. Even though, again, I'm pretty much shooting straight into the sun here as well, which is really nice. Now, getting a little bit creative with this. So this is a live ND shot. So once we started to head into blue hour, and as you can see, we've got that beautiful smoothness to our water, but we've still got lots of beautiful detail in there as well, which is nice. So again, a couple of different creative things. Then we go back out to Yea. So again, out a couple of hours out of Melbourne, and as we were driving around we're actually looking for birds at this particular time. Our ambassador and my very good friend Michael Hurren, who lives out that way, he said, "I've got to go and show you the car." I said, "What are you talking about, the car?" And he said, "Well, you'll see when we get there." And this thing is perched on basically a cliff. As you can see, and apparently it's been there for many years, but these rolling hills and these layers, that the compression that the lens gives you just made it look a really beautiful shot, which is nice. Quick note here from Maryland. How did you find using the long lens on the OM3 without a grip? Two little cheats that I do with that, Maryland. One, I do use a grip with it, and secondly, because I planned on doing the majority of those shots, sort of long exposure shots, I had a tripod with me as well. So there are some actual custom grips that have been made for the OM3. So we aren't going to be making one for it. I'm sure you guys already knew that, for those of you who either have one or are looking to buy one. But there are some custom grips that are specifically made for the camera. I got one from a place called iWood. It's an ebony wood with basically an aluminium ionized base plate. It looks really nice. It's got a nice curve for where your index finger sits on the front of it. It's just, it's a nice piece of kit, because and again, for context, I can't use even an OM1 Mark II or an OM1 without the battery grip on it. My hands are just too wide. So I needed something like that if I did plan on using larger lenses with it. Again, I'm kind of spoiled. As the product specialist, I get a sample of basically every lens that we do and every body. So the OM3 nearly doesn't leave my kit because I'll just throw a prime on it or throw a 12-100 on it, and that's just my walk around everyday camera for when I don't want to carry a whole bunch of stuff with me. Whereas if you're getting serious with big tele lenses and that sort of thing, the extra grip that the OM1 Mark II gives you is really why you would be going down that route for that sort of lens as well. So Marilyn, to answer your question, it's not that it's not capable of doing it. You've just got to work out a way that works best for you personally, and that was just the way that it worked for me. So cool. Okay. Leo Photo, absolutely. Yep, that was definitely the brand that I had in mind, and it escaped me. So thank you for adding that, Marilyn. So this is a beautiful afternoon down at Werribee as well. So again, some nice layering with our mountain range in the background. This is also in the Werribee treatment area where all the birds are. But I was on my way back from a bird hide that sits sort of behind, like where the camera is sort of facing behind your right shoulder. There's a big wooden bird hide that sits right down on the water's edge, down by the beach. So I went down and had a squiz out there. There wasn't too much sort of going on. There's some little sparrows and swallows sort of flitting around, which I shot for a little while. But on the way back, as you can see, the sort of the ambience and the light for the afternoon were actually quite strange. So I sort of turned around and sort of took my bird hat off for a second and went, oh, that actually looks pretty cool. I'm going to take a photo of that. And then when I actually looked at it, I went, yeah, that actually looks really cool. So again, from a landscape point of view, those are the different things that you can do. But now we get into some fun stuff. So again, big shout out to our ambassador, Michael Hurren, who I was going to say lent me his puppy for the afternoon, but he didn't lend me his puppy. We shot Jack together that for that afternoon when we were doing the grass parrots that we looked at before. And this is Jack. Now, Jack is an Australian Kelpie. He's actually quite a little bit bigger than what your normal Kelpie gets, but anybody who knows anything about dogs like these, they are bred working dogs. They are rapid. They do not stop. They can change direction on a dime. So it was actually a really good subject to be able to sort of put the lens through its paces to see how it performed. So here, again, stationary position, but really, really nice bokeh and really nice subject separation in its background. But even while he was on the move or about to be on the move, we're still getting beautiful, sharp images. And again, that really nice subject separation. And this is actually a really good example of that because you can see all of that area. So Michael Hurren actually shot these. He was lying down on his stomach, and you can see where he shot past the ball, and we've got all of that foreground blurred out right up until the front of Jack's feet. So again, that's how narrow this depth of field you're actually working with. But again, the subject separation that it gives you, combined with the way that the camera's focus, is just amazingly good. So here we go. We've got Jack on the run, on the move for one of his balls, and again, super, super sharp, beautiful, beautiful background. Again, doing everything that it's designed to do. This one I also like because we've got a big kick up of, some grass and dust and that sort of thing as well. So, and he's looking straight down the barrel of the camera as well, which always works really nicely. But I did also spend a couple of hours out at one of the zoos in Melbourne as well. So I thought, there's a good chance that we'll have some international folks joining the live stream. So I wanted to show some native animals. So at least we could say, yes, we were definitely shooting all of these in Australia. So these pretty chilled out dudes are a couple of eastern grey kangaroos. We've also got this little guy here as well. And you might be wondering, well, okay, why have you shot this, or why have you put this one in here with the stick in front of his face? The reason why I did was because obviously I was using subject recognition with it, but the way it locked onto him, and even though I had this obstruction, because this guy was just, I don't think he was too happy with me being there, to be perfectly honest. He was sort of walking in and out of the tree line. But the reason why I put this in here is to show just how well that subject recognition focus worked by locking onto him, even though it obviously had the obstruction in front of him as well, which is pretty cool. And that zoomed in, that is like razor sharp as well. And that was shot with the lens on its own. This lovely lady was also shot at the same zoo that day. And that, I believe, because I could only get two angles on these guys, I'm pretty sure that was the one through glass. which is obviously not ideal. But when you're there to photograph the animals at the zoo, there's only so many different angles and places that you can shoot them from. But I was still really impressed with that by shooting through glass, and just how sharp that was, and all the detail around the fur and face was really nice. And then we had a couple of these bruises as well. So this guy was at a fairly significant distance. So this was shot with the MC20 2x converter. But as you can see, beautiful depth of field control, really, really sharp. And then we had one of his brothers here, which again, he was sitting across sort of a moated area from me, and every now and again he'd sort of glance or look in my direction and then sort of look away in disgust. So I don't think he was overly happy with me taking photos of him either. But again, beautiful detail. Anything with fur and feathers is always a great way to show off the detail and sharpness of what a lens can do for you. Okay, so that's our wildlife, guys. And then we move on to some macro stuff. So this is a little bit of a mix of the Melbourne Botanic Gardens and also the beautiful garden that my lovely wife curates for us on a regular basis as well. So the majority of these were shot with an FL900 as well, because I went out on 2 separate occasions to do some macro photography with the new lens, and both days were absolutely blowing a gale for wind. It was nearly impossible to get something without flash, but it was also a good experiment for me as well, because I wanted to see just how it would perform with one of our flashes on there as well, because again, the lens is relatively long, and also used it with a diffuser as well, so a Magmod attachable diffuser to the front of it, and as you can see, no problems whatsoever. So that was shot with an FL900, so that's the slightly larger flash. But again, the results speak for themselves. Beautiful color, beautiful detail, really nice reflection through those little beads of water, which was nice. This little cacti is also part of the cactus gardens inside, which is on the edge of the botanical gardens inside Melbourne, which are actually where the workshop was this morning. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to us, a big part of the cactus area was not open to the public today, which obviously wasn't ideal. But again, I just wanted to put this in here to show that beautiful detail that you can see. But again, that lovely background defocused area that you get with this as well. So that was shot all the way down at f13. So again, we've actually still got some decent depth of field, even though we're shooting zoomed all the way in at 200 mil. But again, that's the sort of thing that you can do with that little combo. These little guys, again, were also part of that same garden. Again, great detail all the way from the front edge to the back, even though these are single captures, so these aren't stacks. And that's still at 200 mil at f8. So again, we've got just enough in focus, as opposed to sort of, just getting that front edge, even if we are having to stop down that little bit further. This little guy here, I love this after I actually looked at it when I got back home and actually looked at these in full size, because I could sort of went, and for context, guys, we're only literally like a week into spring here in Australia. So it really, there's a few things that are budding. There's a few things that are starting to bloom, but there's not a plethora of flora for us to be able to photograph yet. But obviously that's going to explode for us here in the next sort of couple of months. So this one that was starting to bud, I couldn't believe the detail on this. But again, the drop off for the focus is really smooth and really, really nice. So even though it's not true macro, obviously we're shooting at sort of 0.5 to 1, not 1 to 1. I was still really impressed with the way that performed on there. And that's with the lens on its own as well, guys. That's not with the teleconverter on there. Again, something Australian. We needed to put some gum nuts in there as well, which is, again, beautiful background, but really, really nice detail on there. Again, hit with that FL900 flash. These little guys here, again, pop a flash, really set off those little beads of rain. Again, it was a horrible day that I was out there, but we've also got a little friend sort of tucked in into the side there as well, where again, I don't think he was overly impressed with me hitting a flash, especially while this thing was swinging in the breeze, probably about 30 centimeters in each direction, throughout some of the time that I was trying to get him as well. So, but again, really, really nice. And then again, something we do have luckily in an abundance at this time of year is wattle. So wattle is a beautiful, beautiful plant that buds around this time of year for us here in Australia. And as you can see, super, super fine detail, even all the way in at 200 mil. And that's shot at 7.1 as well. So, and that was without flash, because I couldn't actually get super close to these. But again, the magnification of the lens did exactly what I needed it to do. And this last one, this was something interesting that I just like the look of, especially with all the little sort of fingers that were going on in the background of here as well. So I'm not sure if anybody knows what species this is, but I just love the way that these guys sort of stood out from their background. But again, we can still see enough of what's going on to make it look a little bit interesting. So yeah, so that from my side, guys, is everything that I wanted to sort of take everybody through from a pre-prepared point of view. And I really hope that you've got a really good feel and understanding of what this lens is all about, and obviously what it can do for you and for your photography. But a couple of things before I do finish off. So the things that are actually coming with the lens. So the lens, obviously the front and rear caps, your lens hood, and also the lens case are going to be coming with the lens when you do purchase it. And our 77mm Pro protection filter is obviously available separately at the same time. As I quickly mentioned before, just so you've got more of a visual on it, the lens hood does come with that filter operation window. So again, it's just so much easier and nicer to be able to pop your finger through there and just hit the edge of your filter, as opposed to, again, taking your hood off every single time you want to use it. So that's really nice too. Also, that new tripod collar design. So we launched this with the 100 to 400mm Mark II. It just means that it's a lot cleaner and a lot simpler to be able to extract and also put back on the tripod collar whenever you need to, or when you want to as well, which is really nice. So that's it from my side, guys. Again, I've seen lots of comments and stuff come through as we were there. So from Kitty Cat, just wondering, I mostly use the 100-400 Panasonic. I shoot birds, wildlife, macro, and on what occasion would I sacrifice the range of the 100 to 400mm in favor of this lens? Kitty Cat, sorry, I don't mean to use nicknames. I'm sorry, that's the only thing that I can see on here. One thing that I definitely would say is that the advantage of this is lens on its own, because obviously you can actually go all the way out to that equivalent 800mm if you use the 2x teleconverter, and still at 5.6. So it's actually faster than what you would be able to do, a faster aperture than what you would be able to do with your Panasonic 100 to 400mm. But the advantage of lens on its own, again, is that 2.8 aperture. Also, the way that it stabilizes, and that also is, I suppose, a question I need to put back in your direction as well, is which body would you be using this on, as in which camera body? Because in order to get that level of performance for the stabilizer, that does need to be partnered with an OMSYSTEM camera. But the way that it stabilizes, if you are using it on one of our bodies, again, is absolutely incredible. So stabilization, faster aperture, also really, really fast to focus as well. And that's, I don't think it's necessarily a criticism of 100 to 400mm Panasonic, because I've shot with that for a couple of times. It's actually quite sharp. It's actually a really nice lens to use, but it's also designed to be used with contrast focus as well. So because the majority of our cameras, or nearly all by one, are all using either a mixture of phase and contrast or pure phase, that's where you're probably going to see a huge advantage on one of our bodies as well, is that speed of focusing. So, but again, that F2.8, I keep looping back to the F2.8 aperture. The extra light that it gathers for you, again, just can't be underwritten. But because you can shoot with this wide open all of the time, the depth of field control as well as the sharpness is actually really going to take some images to another level for you. So I hope that answers your question. Tony, yep, thank you very much, Tony. Is the lens hood the same retractable design as the 150 to 400 from Maryland? No, it's not. It is a single piece, so it is reversible though. So if you see me holding that up there, so that is reversible. So I can pop that off with a little locking button, same as what you get on a lot of our Pro lens hoods now. Is that going to go into focus? Yep, there we go. So yeah, that is a single piece, so it's not the foldable one like the 150 to 400mm. No, to answer your question. Pete, thank you very much. What does the preset button on the lens do? So, John, the easiest way to utilize that. Oh, phew, yeah, you're telling me. This is my second workshop of the day, guys. I think my throat's going to be cactus by the end of it, but that's okay. It was an exciting one, and it was a really, really good day. But the preset button on the side, or the set button, and the preset switch is basically controlling. Well, you can set it to control focus distance, is probably the main thing that you would do, or use it for, or also focus focus control. So you can actually turn or set it to turn focus off. So set it to manual focus while you press and hold one of the smaller buttons around the outside. You can also make sure that you've got silent function on there as well, so it's not making any beep. So you can actually turn all the sound off at the same time. So yeah, there's a couple of different things that you can actually do with that, John. But the main thing for mine is utilizing those 4 buttons that are sort of housed around the outside of the lens barrel, being able to sort of manipulate those to do different things for you as well, which is really nice. So cool. Using OM1 Mark 1, then you are definitely going to get all of that stabilization advantage by using that the new 50 to 200 mil as well. So, and remember, make sure you do your firmware upgrade. All of you guys that have got OM1 Mark 1s, what version 1.8 came out yesterday. So please jump on whichever service you use in order to do your updates, whether it's your desktop or whether you use the app. I highly actually encourage people to start using the app. A lot of people sort of aren't even aware that they can do that yet, because once you go through the initial pairing process, and you only have to do that once, you scan the QR code with the camera on your phone. It creates all the pairing and everything for you, and from there, open up the app, pair up the camera, and then in the top right-hand corner where the little cog or the gear is, click on there and then go to camera management and then check firmware. Now, the brilliant thing is it'll not only check for firmware on the body, but also the lens that you've got attached as well. So it'll only do them one at a time. So if you do the body, you'll do the body, and then you go back and do the lens. But it just means that you can update all of your lenses and bodies wherever you happen to be, as long as you've got a Wi-Fi connection. So that's pretty cool. All right. Excellent, guys. Well, look, that, again, is pretty much it from my side, unless we've got any other questions that I haven't missed. One, just for context, guys, one of the challenging things about these going out broadcast on YouTube is that there's about a 30-second delay. So I'll say something, you guys will reply 30 seconds later. So please don't think if I'm not answering or communicating with you straight away, I'm not ignoring anybody. It's just the delay that the actual stream creates for itself. So cool. All right, guys. Well, look, again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really hope it's been informative and a little bit of fun, hopefully, as well. Stay tuned for more from our side as well. All of the details, obviously, and the tech and spec and that sort of thing are available on our website. But if you're talking availability, please jump onto your local camera specialist store. And if you're super keen, then obviously get a deposit down and get one into store as soon as they can. Otherwise, your local guys will give you a better idea as to when it's going to be available in store for you. So thank you, everybody, for this evening. I really hope you've had a great time. Looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everybody.